Bruno Mars just released a song that sounds like it was made before he was born. In this video, I'm breaking down exactly how, stem by stem. I will play most of these parts live, and for the ones I can't, I will show you the MIDI and plugin tools that will get you there, whether or not you play any instruments. Let's go. So the first thing I do when I'm trying to understand how a song is made is to bring it into Fadr stems. Now, they do have a plugin, but for this workflow, I'm going to use it in the browser. So for this, we can go to Fadr.com and just add in the song. In this case, we'll add in I Just Might by Bruno Mars. And here, it separates everything for you. Drums, bass, other instruments, vocals, and we can see what we're working with and start to break down the individual elements. All right, so now we can download the stems. So back here in Ableton, we've got main track here and then the different stems we got from Fadr. So let's drag these into these different tracks we've created. And then I'll just get this to line up.
2, 3.
Not quite. So we're going to zoom in.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Excellent. So now we've got our different stems in here, right? So this track we can mute. And now here is our bass, drums, others, and vocals. Let's check it out. All right, let's start off by recreating the drums. Let's take a listen to what we got in the drums to start. All right, so there's some percussion layers in there, bongos or congas, and I'll deal with that later. First, let's get the drum set recorded in. So hop to the drum set over there. Be right back. So we recorded some live drum set, and I noticed that in the production, the Bruno Mars production, there's some pretty beefy on 2 and 4, like a big fat clap and snare drum. That snare drum, I couldn't get my snare drum to sound close to that. It seems like that's a common thing they do in sessions where they might record hi-hat and kicks separately just to get that tight feel and then add a 2 and 4 with a separate processed sample. So again, take a listen back. Thanks with the Fadr stem of the drums. That sounds like this. And so now here to help fatten up that 2 and 4 in the snare drum, here's our MIDI drums. This is from Addictive Drums 2, just adding a clap and a snare. So together that gets this. All right, and then if you listen back to the original drums, you'll hear there's also a percussion layer. So let's find what that is. So here I'll add a MIDI track, add in complete control, grabbing Cuba, a conga set. Here's a rough take at the conga idea. All right, so I can play around with some different conga ideas. All right, so we've got the drum set and the congas. Now let's add the bass. And notice that we have this active bass line kind of moving around. Bass. This bass is actually from the 1960s, but let's go ahead and record.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And then let's try to get the chorus. So there, we recorded the bass using the bass guitar, but we can also record it with MIDI. And I can show you the instrument I like to use for that. This is Native Instruments Rickenbacker bass. So again, here I can play in this main pattern, and I'll play it in on the keyboard. But if you can't play keyboard, you can just program it in the MIDI notes. There's how you can get the bass with MIDI bass and real bass. And next up, let's add guitar. Let's take a listen to the Bruno Mars guitar part. So for here from Fadr, we can solo out the others category. There's two main guitar parts. One of them is doing that similar line to the bass line, kind of like this, but there's a bit more of like a distortion on it. And there's one that's kind of just doing bar chords going from F major up to G minor, kind of like now here, there's a cool guitar part with these kind of stabby chords. All right, here we go. All right, so we've added in the drums, percussion, bass, and guitar. And next, let's add in the organ. There's an organ in there, as you can hear right here. It's there in that pre-chorus going from A minor to G minor. So let's go record that. I've got the organ over there. All right, there we go. So there's the organ recorded, which again, if you don't have like a keyboard that can do that, here's like a MIDI instrument I use that sounds like a pretty good organ in my opinion. This is also from Native Instruments, Complete Control, Vintage Organ. This patch just a basic funk. Let's record that pre-chorus with this organ, the MIDI organ, which again, you could play it in, or you could just draw it in with MIDI. The chords are pretty simple, just to give a little example of drawing it in with MIDI. You know, you got your, should be A, C, E, right? It's just A minor. So you could draw in your A, C, E, have it go out, but I'll just play it in for now. Here we go. So you got two different options there, the audio organ or the MIDI. And then another element in here is the horns, right? So let's take a listen to that. Let's hear what this rough take of the horns sounded like. Real horns would sound better, but in lieu of that, I tried session horns from Native Instruments. All right, excellent. And now, I'm not a vocalist, so we're not going to dive deep into the vocal recreation. However, pretty cool that Fadr can provide the stems for you so you can dive into these different things, try your best to recreate the bass drums and others, however much else you can. And even you can play the vocal melody on other instruments. But so now I've turned off the Fadr stems for I Just Might by Bruno Mars. I've turned off the bass drums and others. So let's turn back in the vocals and just see how it sounds with the quick arrangement we put together. And again, you know, some of this we did audio, and then you have the option to add in MIDI or even samples for instruments that you can't play. And let's check out just a little bit of this.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You gotta get down, you know what to do. Hey, it's that DJ. There's some in this thing, baby. Shit, I just might make my baby. I just might make my baby. Hey.
All right, and then checking out some of the individual layers. And this is how you build a song that sounds like it has always existed. The different elements really just blend together really well. And now the Fadr link is in the description, so go pull some stems yourself and see what you find. See you in the next one.